Hit record. Hello, everyone. I just want to thank you for being here for our members only page interview. And today I have with me Becki. Becki is a friend of mine for a couple years, I think.
Yeah.
And I have had the privilege of watching her journey. And I have been encouraged by watching her take some incredibly brave steps. And so when I thought about somebody who has been through it, has endured the different kinds of suffering of deconstruction, and coming out on the other side stronger, and creating themselves new, if you want to put it that way, if you want to use a real religious kind of term, it's Becki. And so, Becki, thank you for being here with us today. So excited to be able to hear your words of wisdom.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Brad. I always love having conversations with you. I'm excited.
Awesome. And the feeling is mutual. So, Becki, for those that do not know you, just take a moment, kind of introduce yourself.
Well, this is the first time I'm doing this part. I am an author. I wrote my own book, and that just came out this month, in August. So there's that. I do photography. I'm a photographer, and I call myself an amateur graphic designer or graphic artist, whatever you want to call it. I really enjoy doing that type of thing. I play roller derby, and I take all of those things and I add them to roller derby as far as photography and graphic design goes. And I have 2 kids, and I have a husband, and we've been married for 15 years.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Roller derby. Now, okay, that's old school, right? I mean, like, I remember that as a kid. That's really cool. How'd you even get into that? Like, how'd you find that? I mean,
yeah, it's funny. It was actually 6 years ago this time. I was turning 30 years old, and I was like having a little bit of a crisis about that. And I wanted to go do something that was different and that was just for me. And so I just typed in Google roller derby near me, and I found my local roller derby league, and they were having a open house, and I just went in. It was the scariest drive I've ever done. But I went, and I have loved it and have had 0 regrets.
that's amazing. And we are going to talk about your book a little bit later, but congratulations on that as well.
Thank you.
That's a huge accomplishment. So tell us a little bit about your religious background. Like, give us a story.
So I was born into a Christian family. We were very much Baptist, and we were of the breed of the independent fundamental Baptists. Southern Baptists were bad. So we were IFB, and very much, yep. And I grew up in the if it ain't King James, it ain't the Bible region, and which, after having dissected the King James Bible, just gives me the greatest joy to know that that man was bisexual, and had a part-time lover.
How dare you?
Just the greatest thing ever to know. I also was on I call it the outskirts of IBLP, which is the Institute of Basic Life Principles, which is Bill Gothard. You think of the Duggars. We were like you had like the major IBLP people, but they had like branches, and so my church was like part of the branches. There was a lot of people who had that kind of legalism, so it was just so much legalism that ran rampant in my church growing up. And so I was part of that, and it was very much like women are subservient, women are second rate, women are behind the scenes. And then once I got married, which I got married at 20, we left my church and went to a Wesleyan church, which was a lot more liberal, a lot more accepting of the female gender as far as roles in the church goes. But still,
very sinful of you.
I know, right? How dare I?
How dare you?
That was the church that I felt like was going to be like the change that I needed, like the difference that I needed. And that was the church that I became a pastor in, and still had the same old abuse going on, just different labels, different ways, but it was still there.
Wow. Okay. So you got married young,
I did.
which is very common within religious circles, right? So,
Yes. Yeah.
uh, and when did you start, like, knowing you switched from very ultra conservative King James to Wesleyan is a pretty big jump in of itself, but when did you start the process of deconstructing?
So I would have like little moments where I was like, oh, like this is just like not fitting. Um, but it was like to leave the church was just absolutely like irresponsible, impossible, like could never just not be a Christian anymore. Um, so those types of thoughts started coming into my forefront in about 2018. But it was just push them away. Like that's just, that's not something that I can ever really consider. I can have that thought, but that's it. And it wasn't until February of 2020, right before COVID hit, which was when the pastor of my church was not liking the boundaries that we were setting with him at that point, and he was harassing, texting, calling, yelling, hanging up, calling again, just everything that you could do. And then did it to me while I was driving. And as soon as my car made contact with a tree because of that, I was like, this is it. This is
Mhm.
it's finally over. But
No.
it's funny because that was just the beginning.
Yeah, if anybody would like to hear about her story, I know that I can send you a link to when Becki and I have talked before about that. Our focus today is more upon healing, but her backstory and the details of that are really rather disturbing. Really, when it comes down to it. So, so you come out of that, you said, okay, this is it. I've got to leave. You've been walking through the process of deconstruction, right, for years now. Um, when did you feel like you had turned the corner on your deconstruction journey?
I definitely didn't have just one corner that I turned.
Hmm.
I What I found was little moments, and before that, little seconds where I would have like these glimmers.
Hmm.
And once they started like happening more and more for like the seconds and the moments, it was like, huh, like maybe I can hold my guitar again for a minute and it's not going to kill me. And then after the minute's over, you're like, I can't touch you again for like 30 days. Like it was it was the little steps that I took before I was doing any kind of like major corner turning. And what I like to describe it as is running, because I'm a runner. And when you're first starting out to run, you can only run in like short spurts if you are a normal person who isn't just like a robot who can just go. In my experience, it's been run for little spurts, walk,
Yeah.
run, walk, and you build your endurance that way until you're able to run further and further. Um, Now I kind of feel like I'm able to like have this really good endurance where I can run for quite some time. And then once a trigger comes, I'm able to work through that a lot easier these days than I have been before. Like they aren't debilitating, they aren't like self-destructive. They're more so like, okay, I need to connect with myself now. I need to start working through this, and what compassion can I have for myself through this?
Hmm. I love the fact that you describe that as like seconds or
Yeah.
small moments, because we often think about there's one major turn or something, a life change that happens because we've been brought up in religion, and that's kind of the way religion programs you to think, right?
Yeah.
But I love the way they're just little seconds, because as you were talking about that, and for those that don't know, um, when she talked about picking up the guitar, it's because you're incredibly talented with music, and you led worship. And so just those seconds of just healing through those difficult moments or memories and everything like that. So and taking the moment, if I understand correctly, taking the moment to recognize those seconds,
Yeah.
right? Like when that happened, when you had those seconds that you kind of felt, did it bring you hope, or what did it do to encourage you, if it did anything, or how did
It
it work
was
for you?
It was more so like, I could at the end of the day, I could be like, I held my guitar today, or I sat at the piano and I played around for just a little bit,
Mhm.
and I'm okay now. I don't think I can do that again for a little bit, but today I did it. And I think just having that reflective pause to be able to, really give it pay the homage towards what you're doing in those seconds, because at first that's all you have.
Right. I love that. Okay. So you have been focusing a lot on, uh, you use the term reconstructing your life.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit what you mean by reconstruction.
So for me, reconstruction is a proactive decision.
Mm.
I think it's something that you have to choose to do. It's choices that keep you growing and keep you building and rebuilding, because we've taken this whole thing apart. And I use the analogy of I took it apart brick by brick, and some of those bricks I had to study why I didn't want it anymore and set it to the side, and some bricks I was like, and put it in a different pile. So we've like sifted through this whole castle and like have demolished it, and now we have this mess. And it's like going to the smaller pile of bricks that you have and start sifting through those and seeing what you want to pile back up on to build your new castle, or it doesn't have to be a castle, it can just be your little house. um but just to make the conscious effort and the decisions to do those, they're really hard and uncomfortable. It's a rebuilding process. Some of those bricks were just absolutely disintegrated in your hand, and you have to piece them back together if you can, or you have to make the hard decision to be like, this is too far gone, I got to put this in the other pile.
Right. So as you're doing that, what helps you daily moving forward in that reconstruction process?
I think for me, it's making decisions about the life I want to live tomorrow, today. And that's really hard for me. I have ADHD, so like tomorrow is like this distant future, but it's really not. I have to make these absolute conscious efforts to organize my life and to prepare. So I everything was so certain before. Everything was so like laid out for us, and it was just like, oh, I'm just gonna sail through life until Jesus calls me home, whenever that is. I don't know. Maybe I'll float in the sky tomorrow. Don't know. Like, why bother planning? So now that I got diagnosed with ADHD, in my deconstruction process, which has totally revolutionized my life. I take medications, and that really helps me stay on task, because before it was just like I felt very incapable of doing so much. So it's really been a very empowering thing to discover about myself. Um, so like something that I do, just like a very basic practical thing I do, is like calendar my life on a physical piece of paper, because if I don't do that, I don't know what's happening. So it's like a way for me to physically connect with my pen and my paper, and be in my life and not just sail through, and because that wasn't working for me.
I love the way in which you're proactive, right?
Yeah.
But- And I think that's important because that's really what you're saying. It says, hey, it takes work and you have to be proactive when putting your life back together.
Yes.
I love the fact you say, hey, who do I want to be? What do I want to look like tomorrow?
Hmm.
What do I look like down the road? I'm not just going to let life happen to me.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out and seize it, right? I'm at this moment for this day. It will make a difference for tomorrow, right?
Yeah. And the
Um,
funny thing is that's how I came about roller derby. When I was turning 30, I was like, I don't want life to just happen. I want to make it be a conscious decision. So like that was why I sought out something so extreme as roller derby, because I needed something, and I was still very much Christian in the church at that point. Um, and of course, it was being salt of the earth. I had to go and witness to all the people on the roller derby team, but it's really funny because that plan completely backfired.
backfired.
Yeah, very backfired. But that was what I was saying at that point, was like, I want to make my life. I don't want to just let it.
Right, right. I love that. Okay, so as you're going through this whole deconstruction process, as you're you're picking up the bricks and deciding, hey, this one's yes, this one's no, this one's maybe, whatever have you. How have those around you supported you through this process?
I think I'm very fortunate to have a very supportive partner. Um, he has really been someone who has been front row seat to all of this. Not completely understood what it was I was going through, but was still showing up and just saying like, what do I do for you right now? What what can I be for you? What do you need? So I'm very, very fortunate that him and I have this relationship where we can be that for each other, but like he's just had to be more for me over the last 3 years. And I'm happy that now we can start to like calibrate and get back a little bit more even though I don't think things are ever completely even in a relationship. I think somebody's got something going on at all times, but
Oh.
um my friend circle is a lot different now than it used to be. And the friends that I have now are just, they're buying my book, they're reading it, they're talking to me about it, they're excited about it. And I have a lot of people in my life who were there before who are just they're not a part of it anymore. Like they couldn't support it. And that was very painful to go through, but to sit here now with the people who are wildly supporting me, it's very, very satisfying, gratifying. It's made it all worth it.
Does it feel like the ones that aren't supporting you more versus the ones that are, that you're actually being accepted for yourself?
Yeah,
Is that kind of the feeling?
absolutely. Yeah, my true authentic self is what people see now, and the friends I have are seeing who I actually am and accepting that. And celebrating it too. It's not just an acceptance, it's a celebration.
I think that's a huge distinction
Yeah,
as well. I mean, no one wants to be just accepted, right? I mean,
right.
we want to be celebrated for who we are.
Yeah,
I love that point.
yeah.
Well done. Okay, so would you mind sharing with us, okay, about how you moved from, the valley of deconstruction, right? That like you're looking up and like, am I ever going to get out of here? How did you move through that? Were there any key elements, any key things that came to mind or helped you, that you can share with their audience to be encouraging to them to be able to move out of that valley into more of a open area, a place of freedom and acceptance?
Yeah, I think I know that therapy is not something that is like available to everybody, but having some type of coach or therapy is like vital because they're outside looking in on your healing journey. And there were so many times that I needed big reminders of what I was accomplishing in my life. Like relishing the glimmers was something that I wanted to mention because I would just be like, "Oh, whatever about picking up the guitar for 30 seconds." But my therapist was like, "You did what? That's that's amazing. I'm so glad you did that." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't realize that it was like that big of a deal." But okay, because now you look back and you're like, I've played a show. I'm in a band now where I'm one of the lead guitarists, and we have like all these shows coming up, and I'm playing in public with a punk rock band named Trash Rocket, and it's you just having that perspective of having somebody else who is trained in what you're going through and can support you and help you recognize so that you can relish the glimmers when they make their appearance is, I think it's so vital because you don't want to be alone in what you're going through. Deconstruction is it's not fun. It's, dare I say, can be quite miserable, and you can feel very, very alone. So if you can partner with someone somehow, that's definitely something that I found very helpful.
I agree. And I think that it's important to point out that, you know, um, both the therapist and the coach have very different roles. And a
Yeah.
lot of my clientele have had both. So I know that, my therapist plays a certain role, as opposed to my coach. So, I mean, that's great advice. Because one of the things that, I didn't have walking through was I didn't have anybody, because, you lose everybody sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Through the terrible part of deconstruction. And so
Yeah.
don't walk it alone.
Yeah.
If you don't have a supporting partner at home, if you don't have somebody, find somebody, a counselor or a coach or something. It's well worth the money. My counselor's gold.
Mhm.
Which I have not graduated from yet. So, okay. So what is your favorite part of your day?
I think it's after I've done something productive. That's my favorite part of the day because I just remember the days that I spent in bed alone and the days that I just couldn't do anything because of how depressed I was, how defeated I felt. And now that I have my diagnoses, I have my medication, I have my healing that I've worked really hard to have. It makes it so that I can go out and run. It makes it so that I can join a band and go to band practice. It makes it so that I can, you know, have moments with my kids where I'm really connecting with them. Um, Cook even. It's when I get to have one of those productive moments or activities that just seemed impossible. Those are my favorite parts of my day.
It's awesome. Okay. So great. And that productive ability is important for, so if you're suffering from depression or something along those lines. So let me ask, tell us a little bit about your book.
Yeah, so it's called Also Your Daughters.
Mhm.
I published it on August 1st, and it's available on Amazon. And you just type in "Also Your Daughters" Becki Beasley, and it'll pop right up. It's basically my deconstruction story, my journey, how I was able to de-weaponize the Bible and find freedom as a woman, find freedom as a member of the LGBTQIA plus community, and also be able to step into the role of becoming anti-racist and what that means. Um, and then just being able to deep dive on the topics of the Bible that I needed to be free from, and that I needed to say, like, this doesn't have to apply to my life this way, and then be able to just say fuck you to the Bible.
Listen, I want everybody to know that, and they'll be able to see this, but I'm going to put a link to your book below this video, so they can go right to that. I've known you, through the internet,
Yeah.
a couple years, and the questions that you bring up, the answers that you come to, the research you do is amazing. And so anybody that's thinking about buying our book, it's very relatable. She's relatable. You won't be sorry. I mean, Becki, you're one of my favorite people. I'll just say that right now, because I've got your stickers on my laptop still, right, that I bought off you. So
Yeah.
do us all a favor, and if you're deconstructing, which I imagine you are, buy her book. Okay, so last question. What's the best way for people to follow you on this journey, gain hope from you? Where do they go? How do they find you?
I'm on Instagram and TikTok as Deluxe Talk Girl. A lot of people are switching the girl talk and talk girl, but it's Deluxe Talk Girl, like the 90s toy.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where I am on Instagram and TikTok, and that's where I spend a lot of my time.
Awesome. Awesome. And the one thing that I've noticed about your page is, and if I can say this, it's not as angry,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's healing to your page. Not, I mean, the anger is justified. Okay.
Sure.
Right. But you can see definitely through your progression the healing that's taken place. So anybody that needs the encouragement that there is healing on the other side and how to get there, let me encourage you to follow Becki, because she provides that and provides that encouragement for you. So Becki, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for your words of wisdom. Thank you for being my friend. I respect the hell out of you, and I just love watching your journey because it gives me hope as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Brad. You're definitely like one of my favorites, and I will always call you Deconstruction Dad because that's what you are. And I have just been so grateful to know you on Instagram and to have you be part of my journey as well.
Thank you. You're very kind. So everybody, thank you for joining us, and look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.